Madam Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chairperson of African Union Commission, and Dr. Jim Yong Kim, President of the World Bank Group, Excellencies, Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to be part of this important forum, and I thank UNIDO for organizing this very important gathering. This year, 2015, is a critical year for all of us. This is the year for global action for all of us. We have the opportunity to learn from what we have achieved under the MDGs, and we have the opportunity to build a new development framework for our common future. We refer to our new objectives as Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. To lift people out of poverty, it is important to address the three dimensions of sustainable development: economic, social, and environmental, in a balanced and integrated manner. And the proposed Sustainable Development Goals 9 promotes inclusive and sustainable industrialization. Often, when people think of industry, they think of pollution or bad labor practices. But when countries industrialize in an inclusive and sustainable way, they can create decent jobs and preserve their resources without exploiting the environment or people. This is at the heart of SDG 9. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals requires more than finances. I'm convinced that partnerships are the means of implementing the post-2015 development agenda. UNIDO has been among the first to propose a concrete model to operationalize and advance SDG 9 with a program for country partnership. The program convenes different partners under the ownership of the host government to coordinate and optimize the contribution of each and pool resources together. This means that traditional financial flows for development are reinforced with new additional sources of investment for greater development impact. I applaud UNIDO and the governments of Ethiopia and Senegal for their dedication and hard work towards advancing inclusive and sustainable industrialization in their countries through the program for country partnership. They set an example for the rest of us on how to partner together to accelerate public investment and attract private finance in key industrial sectors. This program for country partnership can serve as a model for realizing the other SDGs too. We must join forces to change our world and provide a life of dignity for all. What we face together, we must solve together. Thank you, and I count on your leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency Secretary General. I have the honor now to give the floor to the President of the World Bank Group, Dr. Jim Yong Kim, to deliver his statement from the podium. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, Prime Minister Haileman Desalegn, and all other, and Chairperson Dr. Zuma, and our honored delegates here. It's a great honor for me to be here at UNIDO's forum on the critical role of inclusive and sustainable industrialization in the future global development agenda, including the goal to end extreme poverty by 2030. Industrial development is often perceived to be disruptive to the environment, disruptive through construction, natural resource demands, and effect on air quality, but it doesn't have to be this way. Industrialization, when done sustainably and inclusively, can be a driver of job creation, technology transfer, and sustainable economic growth. In the spirit of the international community's ongoing efforts to establish strong partnerships for development, this event is most timely and welcome. Investing in resilient infrastructure, inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and innovation is a prerequisite for achieving a wide range of sustainable development priorities. This requires a strong private sector and good public policies that provide an enabling environment for private investment and business development. The World Bank Group has been actively financing industrial infrastructure, particularly industrial parks and trade logistics, as well as related soft infrastructure across different regions of the world. Promoting inclusive and sustainable industrial development calls for a broader range of resources than any single development institution can provide on its own. This type of development requires investments not only in industry, but also in associated infrastructure such as transport facilities and utilities. It also calls for policies, strategies, and regulatory frameworks designed to facilitate market access, create decent jobs, attract foreign direct investment, upgrade technology, and ensure environmental sustainability. In recognition of the complexity of these challenges, we applaud UNIDO for launching its program for country partnership in Ethiopia and Senegal. In Ethiopia, UNIDO and World Bank Group teams are working together to support the government's industrial parks program that you've heard a little bit about already. The World Bank Group has provided $250 million to finance key infrastructure for 2 industrial parks, provides technical and capacity building support for the institutional and regulatory framework, and we're also developing links to small businesses in the country. UNIDO's complementary strengths in the project include developing value chains for leather and textile sectors, skills training programs, quality standards, and technology know-how. UNIDO's role is critical. The institution's coordination as a neutral broker has helped to create synergies and facilitate technology transfer. Together, we're working with the government of Ethiopia to ensure that new industrial parks make use of recycled water and renewable resources, develops green areas, and reflects upgraded environmental standards and environmental inspection systems. Many countries in Africa have an abundance of renewable sources of power that aren't fully realized. Ethiopia is leading the way to rectify this situation and is effectively leveraging its renewable energy sources, hydroelectric power, geothermal, and wind, to industrialize in a way that's consistent with the ambitious carbon neutral agenda that Prime Minister Haile Mariam has told us all about. In Senegal, UNIDO is providing technical advice regarding the development of industrial zones, covering social and environmental impact studies, the management of such zones, and incentives for investors. The first of these zones, near the new International Business Center and airport, will be built in 2 phases. Work on the first phase is underway with government financing, and it's due to open in early 2016. We at the World Bank Group are actively exploring opportunities to work closely with UNIDO during the second phase of this industrial project, and we hope to be able to provide funding either through our fund IDA, which is the concessional loan window for the poorest countries, and also our private sector arm, IFC. These 2 examples are just the beginning. I'm confident that we'll build on these existing initiatives to broaden our partnership. I'd like to particularly thank UNIDO, especially for the strong leadership of my friend, Director General Lee Yong. Our partnership is helping to scale up inclusive and sustainable industrial development, which will be a critical driver toward reaching many of the post-2015 development goals, including the end of extreme poverty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency Dr. Kim. I now wish to give the floor to His Excellency Ms. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, from the podium. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, Your Excellency UN Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Your Excellency Leon, Director of UNIDO, the Minister of Finance of Senegal, standing in for President Macky Sall, President of the World Bank, Jim Kim-yong, Excellency, Director of the European Development, my brother, Carlos Lopez of UNCA, Excellencies, leaders of delegations, it is indeed a great pleasure and honor for us to participate in this meeting where UNIDO is showing us its leadership in this critical area of industrialization, which is inclusive, sustainable. If we look at the discussions on the post-2015 development agenda and sustainable development goals, they correctly locate inclusive economic development as central to the eradication of poverty, disease, and hunger. The pilot that UNIDO has started with Senegal and Ethiopia to us is an actual practical step, not only towards implementing the post-2015, but for implementing Agenda 2063, which is the Africa we want. For Africa, given the challenges we face, our development agenda, therefore, includes human resource development, which Ethiopia and Senegal are doing very well, especially in looking at locating science as a central part of higher education. It also includes infrastructure, and both countries are also doing very well in the development of infrastructure. Agricultural modernization and agro-processing is what industrialization will be about, not only in these two countries, but also in many African countries. And of course, the development of human resource policies and institutions so that we move beyond the exploitation of our mineral resources and natural resources and exploiting them as raw materials so that we can indeed industrialize. And I hope that soon the lessons that will be learned from this pilot will be shared generally with other countries, and that the pilot will then expand to a few more countries. Of course, Africa is also home of the largest number of least developed countries, 34 of them in total, but it is committed to a path of structural transformation that will enable it to decisively break with its recent history of underdevelopment and marginalization. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Africa Vision Agenda 2063, which was recently adopted by heads of state, is one of the reasons why we have embarked on a new way of discussion with our partners. We are redefining our relations with our partners, with international institutions, and this is another opportunity where we have had very frank discussions and good discussions with UNIDO a few years ago. And Africa has to industrialize and beneficiate. If we do not, given our population growth and our large youth population, instead of getting a demographic dividend, we will have a demographic disaster. In fact, if we do not move very quickly, the disaster has already started. If we look at what is happening across the Sahel and across the Mediterranean, it is a tragedy whose roots are in the underdevelopment of Africa and marginalization of Africa. For these young men and women to take these perilous journeys across to foreign shores, it's because there are not enough jobs on the continent. They are not properly skilled to create jobs or to get decent jobs. So as Africa, we have no other choice but to embark on a transformative economic route and embark on programs that will eradicate poverty. Because if we do not, as I say, this disaster will unfold and will engulf all of us, not just Africa, as it has started. So I'm very happy with UNIDO, but also want to appreciate the work that ECA has been doing with our ministers. They've been discussing this issue of industrialization, and I think now is time to move, and I'm very excited to hear the president of the World Bank talking about how much they are going to put in this program of industrialization. And indeed, if we all do and work in the same direction, we will achieve a prosperous Africa. But of course, having said that, Africa needs to also take its own responsibility for its development. This means that African countries need to accept that we either unite or collectively perish, because no single country or region can be an island of prosperity in an ocean of poverty, insecurity, and underdevelopment. This includes greater commitment to making intra-African trade work, including cross-border infrastructure projects in transport, energy, ICT, as some regions are already doing. Free movement of people and goods, and removing all the obstacles really that are there, the non-tariff barriers to trade. And of course, creating an environment for the development of truly Pan-African businesses. This includes such initiatives as the Free Continental Trade Area, which we're starting to negotiate this year, and the implementation of the Yamoussoukro Declaration for a single African aviation market. Because whatever we produce in this industrialization project must be able to be traded amongst African countries. Therefore, transport, rail, road, air should be also developed. Though agriculture is central, but Africa is endowed with a lot of other resources. And of course, one biggest resource that we have commonly are the oceans. And of course, Africa must develop its blue economy, but we must get into the automotive, pharmaceutical industry. Africa has the biggest burden of disease, but we do not produce drugs to deal with that. And therefore, the development of the pharmaceutical industry, we do have the raw materials, so we need to get into that as well. We've got oil, gas, textiles, and of course other sectors that are identified under Agenda 2063. And I think we should be able to do this on a multi-country level. We must move on our commitment to vocational training as well as other levels of higher education. And I also call upon our partners to partner us in this skills revolution, because the industrialization will not succeed if we do not get into skills, particularly the science. And of course, we must develop our work with our private sector and have committed to organize, we are committed to organize the first development dialogue platform with the African private sector next year, because they are critical for our transformation. And this conversation must also be held with our leaders of higher education institutions, because they need to prepare our young people in the same direction as our industrialization plans. Excellencies, we therefore have a fair idea what to do, and many of these are contained in our first 10-year plan, and I think Africa is committed to the implementation, and with partners around this table committed, we are convinced that we will indeed eliminate poverty from our continent. I thank you.